An arrogant professor entered the lecture hall with an air of overwhelming authority, clutching a complex problem that she believed no student could possibly tackle. It was her way of subtly asserting her dominance, declaring that she alone stood at the pinnacle of intellect. But what she didn't expect was that the one who solved those problems with ease was an elderly janitor whom she had always looked down upon. Just a few strokes of chalk, and the professor stood silent. Genius sometimes arises from the most humble places. That morning, the atmosphere in the large lecture hall at Bay Area University was unusually lively. Students filled the room to capacity, with seats taken even before the lecture began, and those arriving late had no choice but to stand by the walls or squeeze onto the stair steps. Everyone eagerly anticipated the special lecture by Professor Linda Martinez, a well-known figure in social media and academic circles, famous for her sharp critiques and her willingness to openly challenge the famous personalities she considered products of privilege and luck. Today is going to be a spectacular fall from grace, a student whispered excitedly to a friend upon seeing the lecture title on the screen, Genius or Privilege? The Truth Behind Success Myths. Linda entered the classroom 5 minutes late, not due to traffic or other matters, but because she did it on purpose. She believed that being a few minutes late would create a star effect, making the crowd even more eager with anticipation. Indeed, when the doors swung open and Linda appeared, walking confidently in her high heels and perfectly tailored blazer, the entire room seemed to hold its breath. "Sorry to keep you waiting," she said with a light smile, adjusting her glasses and placing her coffee cup on the desk. "Let's get right to it. Today, I will show you why those whom the world praises as geniuses are, in fact, nothing more than products of a privileged system, where opportunity is not equally distributed." With those words, the screen behind her lit up with images of tech billionaires, among them a large portrait of a man who had been hailed by the media as the genius of the age, someone famous for his work in technology known as Elon. Or at least that was the name Linda intended to use as a model for her argument. They tell you he is a genius, that the formulas behind electric cars, space rockets, and artificial intelligence systems all come from his superior mind. But what's the truth? Linda said as she clicked to bring up a slide showing government subsidies and investment networks tied to that figure. The truth is, no one person creates these things alone. The truth is, when you're born with a ticket to the most prestigious door, all you have to do is walk through it. Meanwhile, others, no matter how talented, are blocked right from the threshold. The room nodded in agreement. The atmosphere felt like a demystification session, with everyone eagerly awaiting the professor to expose the truth behind the success legends. Linda sensed this and relished the feeling of power, being the one to guide the thinking, to awaken those who still dreamed of fairy tales about overcoming hardship to achieve genius. To reinforce her argument, Linda had prepared a secret weapon, a doctoral-level rocket trajectory integral, long and filled with confusing symbols, triple-layer integrals, variable matrices, and complex nonlinear functions so intricate that even senior engineering students would be overwhelmed. "Here," Linda said, turning to the board and starting to write with sharp, confident strokes. "This is the type of problem that the world's best engineers struggle with every day to optimize rocket trajectories, calculate fuel, adjust angles, and minimize errors in the ever-changing upper atmosphere. Now, guess what? Do you think that person could solve this problem by himself, or did he just sign off on the plan?" By the time the problem had covered half the green board, Linda set the chalk down, turned around, and scanned the room, where every gaze was filled with a mixture of astonishment and confusion. So who wants to try? Who wants to prove they're a genius like those media outlets claim? The room fell dead silent. Not a single hand was raised. No whispers could be heard, except for a small, quiet sound from the corner of the room, the faint scraping of a mop against the wall. Then, from the shadows where the sunlight streamed through the bright glass windows, a soft voice spoke. "May I try?" Linda froze. The whole class turned to look, and from that moment on, the story, which seemed like a performance solely for Linda, took an unexpected turn in a direction no one, not even Linda Martinez, could have seen. The moment the question echoed from the corner of the room, the atmosphere in the lecture hall immediately shifted, as if someone had pressed pause on a film nearing a tense climax. Linda raised an eyebrow slightly, her sharp eyes behind thin glasses quickly glancing toward the source of the voice. She was accustomed to students hesitating before such challenging problems, but she hadn't expected the first person to speak to be the janitor who swept the halls every morning. Evelyn Johnson, in her old faded blue janitor's uniform, scuffed shoes, and curly hair speckled with silver, leaned lightly against the handle of her mop. Her expression was calm, but there was a flicker in her eyes, something very different. It wasn't the hesitation of someone who had accidentally spoken out of turn, nor the youthful eagerness of the motionless students sitting in front of her. It was the look of someone who had seen the problem on the board and remembered something familiar, like a long-buried memory suddenly resurfacing after years of being hidden under the dust of time. Second part, the initial encounter. The atmosphere in the lecture hall remained charged with tension as Evelyn Johnson stepped forward, her mop resting against the wall. For a moment, the entire room held its breath, caught between disbelief and curiosity. The students, who had initially viewed her as nothing more than an invisible figure in worn clothes, now watched intently, their expression shifting from skepticism to intrigue. It was a pivotal moment where an ordinary woman dared to challenge the authority of a prestigious professor. As Evelyn approached the whiteboard, Linda's self-assured demeanor began to waver. She had expected to showcase her intellectual superiority, to reinforce her argument about privilege, yet here was Evelyn, a woman who had spent years cleaning the very halls of academia, now standing at the podium, ready to engage with a problem that had been designed to be insurmountable. The contrast was stark, and the students could feel the shift in power dynamics as Evelyn took her place at the board. Evelyn, with her faded blue uniform and humble attitude, exuded a quiet confidence. She picked up the marker, her hand steady as she surveyed the complex equations Linda had written. The students watched, rapt with attention, as she began to solve the problem before them. Each stroke of the marker was deliberate, revealing a precision and understanding that belied her years away from academia. The equations flowed from her, as if she were not merely recalling formulas but revisiting the very essence of her passion for mathematics. Linda's initial reaction was one of disbelief. How could this woman, whom she had overlooked for so long, possess such skill? With each line of calculation that Evelyn wrote, the professor's certainty began to crack. Students leaned forward in their seats, eyes wide with astonishment, some even reaching for their phones to record this unexpected turn of events. The air buzzed with a mixture of admiration and disbelief as they witnessed a janitor not only tackle, but master the complex problem that Linda had presented as a challenge to her class. As Evelyn completed her work, the room fell into a heavy silence. No one dared to speak. They were all too stunned by what they had just witnessed. Linda stood frozen, her mind racing as she processed the implications of Evelyn's success. The professor had built her career on the idea that genius was reserved for the privileged few, and here was a woman who had been relegated to the shadows, dismantling that very notion with every stroke of her marker. Evelyn turned to face the class, her expression calm yet powerful. She did not seek applause or validation. Instead, she simply nodded, acknowledging the moment. It was a quiet victory, not just for her, but for anyone who had ever felt underestimated or overlooked. Linda's carefully constructed narrative began to unravel as the students, who had once looked to her for answers, now turned their gaze to Evelyn, their newfound hero. "Professor," one brave student finally ventured to ask, breaking the thick silence that enveloped the room. Did she really get it all correct? The question hung in the air, heavy with significance. Linda opened her mouth to respond, but found herself at a loss for words. The reality of the situation settled over her like a heavy blanket. She had to confront the truth that Evelyn, the janitor, had not only solved the problem, but had suggested improvements that Linda herself had not considered. As the class buzzed with excitement, Linda felt a mixture of shame and admiration. This was not just a moment of embarrassment, it was a profound awakening. The realization washed over her that she had underestimated Evelyn in every sense. This was not merely a challenge to her authority, but a challenge to her beliefs about privilege, talent, and the nature of genius itself. Evelyn returned to her corner, picking up her mop as though nothing extraordinary had occurred. To her, the moment was simply a return to a familiar routine. But for Linda and the students, everything had changed. The lecture hall was no longer just a place of learning. It had become a battleground for ideas, a space where the lines between privilege and talent were being redrawn before their very eyes. With Evelyn's quiet confidence lingering in the air, Linda knew she had to rethink her approach. The lecture that had been intended as a critique of societal privilege had turned into a lesson about the resilience of the human spirit and the hidden potential that exists within everyone, regardless of their background. The challenge now lay before her: how to embrace this new understanding and what it meant for her future as an educator. Third part, challenge and reversal. The atmosphere in the lecture hall crackled with a palpable tension as Evelyn returned to her seat, leaving her equations on the whiteboard for everyone to see. Students whispered among themselves, their eyes darting between the board and Linda, who stood frozen at the front of the room. The professor's confidence, once so unshakable, now felt fragile in the face of the unexpected reality that had just unfolded. Evelyn's calm demeanor contrasted sharply with Linda's growing unease. The professor had prepared her entire lecture to illustrate the point that success was a product of privilege and that true genius was rare. Yet, here was Evelyn, a woman she had dismissed as inconsequential, demonstrating not just understanding but mastery of a complex problem. The realization that her argument was crumbling before her eyes was a bitter pill to swallow. As the students began to process what they had witnessed, Linda felt the weight of their collective gaze. They were no longer looking at her with awe. Instead, they were captivated by Evelyn, who had dismantled the carefully constructed narrative Linda had built around privilege and genius. The professor's mind raced, trying to formulate a response that could regain her authority, but words eluded her. Just then, a student from the back of the room summoned the courage to break the silence. "Professor, did she really get all of that correct?" The question hung in the air, heavy with implication, forcing Linda to confront the truth she had been avoiding. She could see the doubt in some of her students' eyes, a flicker of disbelief that perhaps they had been misled about the nature of talent and success. With her heart pounding, Linda approached the board, her eyes scanning the equations Evelyn had written. Each line was flawless, each calculation precise, and she could find no errors. It was a testament to a mind that had been neglected and overlooked, a brilliant intellect that had found its voice even in the most unexpected circumstances. The students, once filled with skepticism, now leaned forward in their seats, captivated by the unfolding drama. Evelyn, sensing the shift in energy, remained composed. She had not sought to prove Linda wrong. She had merely stepped into her rightful place, reminding everyone that talent can exist in the most humble forms. With each passing moment, Linda felt her authority slipping further away, replaced by a newfound respect for the woman she had underestimated. As the classroom buzzed with excitement, the implications of Evelyn's success began to sink in. This was more than just a victory in a math problem. It was a challenge to the entire framework of thought that Linda had spent her career defending. If Evelyn could excel, despite her circumstances, what did that say about the barriers that society had constructed around talent and opportunity? Feeling the weight of this realization, Linda took a deep breath. Instead of trying to reclaim her position, she found herself at a crossroads. Perhaps it was time to listen, to learn from the very person she had dismissed. "Evelyn," she said slowly, her voice steady but filled with a newfound humility, "I think you've not only solved the problem, but also opened my eyes to something much deeper." The class fell silent again, the students intrigued by this unexpected turn of events. Evelyn turned to face Linda, her expression calm, yet curious. "I just did what I love," she replied simply. "Math has always been my passion, even when life took me down a different path." Linda nodded, her heart swelling with admiration. The professor realized that the boundaries between privilege and genius were not as clear-cut as she had once believed. In that moment, she understood that true talent often lies hidden beneath the surface, waiting to be uncovered. As the lecture came to a close, the room buzzed with energy, the students eager to discuss the implications of what they had witnessed. Linda felt a profound shift within herself, a desire to explore this new understanding, to challenge her own beliefs, and to foster an environment where all voices, regardless of background, could be heard. Evelyn had not only solved a mathematical problem, she had ignited a spark of change in Linda and her students, one that would resonate far beyond the walls of the lecture hall. Together, they would embark on a journey of discovery, challenging the very notions of success and privilege that had shaped their lives and perspectives. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, Linda felt a sense of hope and excitement about the possibilities that lay ahead. Fourth part, Truth and Awakening. As the lecture hall settled into an uneasy silence, Linda felt the weight of the moment pressing down on her. The equations on the whiteboard, crafted with such confidence, now stood as a testament to the hidden talents that often go unnoticed. Evelyn's presence had shattered the carefully constructed narrative Linda had built, exposing the flaws in her arguments and forcing her to confront an uncomfortable truth. Genius could emerge from the most unexpected places, regardless of social standing. Evelyn, having returned to her corner with her mop, appeared unfazed by the commotion she had caused. To her, the moment was simply a return to her daily routine, while for Linda and the students, everything had transformed. The classroom had become a space of revelation, where privilege and talent were being redefined in real time. As whispers filled the room, Linda's mind raced. She had spent years teaching her students that success was often dictated by privilege, that only those with the right resources and connections could truly excel. Yet here was Evelyn, a woman who had faced hardships that would have deterred many, now standing as proof that determination and intellect could prevail against the odds. The students were no longer looking to Linda for answers. They were drawn to the quiet strength of the janitor who had just proven their professor wrong. In that moment, Linda realized she had to address the shift in perception. The lesson had evolved into something far more significant than she had anticipated. I think it's clear that we need to rethink what we understand about success, she began, her voice steady but tinged with vulnerability. Evelyn has shown us that talent can exist beyond the confines of privilege, that intellect is not limited by one's social status. Evelyn's gaze met Linda's, a flicker of surprise crossing her features. She had never sought recognition. Her focus had always been on the joy of solving problems, the thrill of numbers. But now, with the eyes of the entire class upon her, she felt a swell of pride. This was the moment she had longed for, a chance to reclaim her narrative, to step out of the shadows and into the light of acknowledgement. Mathematics has always been my passion, Evelyn shared, her voice calm yet powerful. I never stopped dreaming, even when life pulled me in different directions. I want everyone to know that it's never too late to pursue your passion, no matter the obstacles. Linda nodded, deeply moved by Evelyn's words. This was not just a lesson in mathematics, but a profound commentary on resilience and the human spirit. The professor understood that her previous beliefs had been challenged, and she felt a stirring within her, a desire to learn from Evelyn, to embrace a broader perspective that included voices like hers. The students began to applaud, their appreciation loud and heartfelt. It was a moment of recognition for Evelyn, but also a turning point for Linda, who now stood before her class with a renewed sense of purpose. She realized that her role as an educator extended beyond imparting knowledge. It was also about creating an inclusive environment where all students felt valued and empowered to share their experiences. As the applause subsided, Linda turned to the board, glancing at the equations that had sparked this transformation. Let's not just stop here, she urged the class. Let's explore the stories behind the numbers, the people behind the formulas. Each of you has a unique perspective to offer, and I want to hear them. The atmosphere in the room shifted once more, filled with a sense of collaboration and excitement. The students began to share their own stories, their voices weaving together narratives of struggle, perseverance, and triumph. It was a powerful exchange, a collective awakening that transcended the boundaries of privilege and circumstance. In that moment, Linda understood that the true essence of education lay not solely in the transmission of knowledge, but in fostering an environment where all voices could resonate. Evelyn had not only solved a problem, she had ignited a movement, inspiring both students and educators to challenge their assumptions and embrace the richness of diverse experiences. As the lecture came to a close, the students filed out of the room, their hearts and minds buzzing with inspiration. Linda lingered for a moment, taking in the remnants of the day's discussions. She felt a profound gratitude toward Evelyn, whose quiet determination had transformed the dynamic of the classroom. Together, they had embarked on a journey of discovery, one that would continue to unfold long after the lecture ended. Linda knew that this was just the beginning, a path that would lead to greater understanding, deeper connections, and a celebration of the brilliance that exists in every individual, regardless of their background. Fifth part, future collaboration. As the class dispersed, the excitement lingered in the air, a vibrant reminder of the day's transformative events. Linda watched her students leave, each one buzzing with the thrill of newfound understanding and appreciation for the complexities of talent and privilege. The lecture had evolved into more than just a discussion on mathematics. It had become a profound exploration of identity, resilience, and the power of perspective. Evelyn remained in the room, her mop resting against the wall as she gathered her things. Linda felt a strong pull to approach her, to engage in a conversation that would allow them to bridge the gap between their worlds. The professor took a deep breath, steeling herself for the dialogue ahead. "Evelyn," she began, her voice warm yet tentative, "I want to thank you for today. You've opened my eyes to something I've been blind to for far too long." Evelyn looked up, surprise flickering across her features. "I just did what I love, Professor. I never expected it to make such an impact." Linda smiled, feeling a sense of kinship with the woman who had challenged her beliefs. "It was more than just your skill with numbers. You've shown us all that talent exists in every corner of society, and it deserves to be recognized." Evelyn nodded, a hint of pride in her expression. "I've always believed that everyone has something to offer. Sometimes it just needs the right moment to shine." Linda felt a spark of inspiration ignite within her. "I'd like to invite you to collaborate on a research project," she proposed. "I'm currently working on a new mathematical model related to optimizing the carbon cycle in the atmosphere. I believe your insights could greatly enhance the research." Evelyn hesitated for a moment, weighing the implications of stepping into this new role. "I'm not sure I'm qualified for something like that," she admitted, her voice steady but laced with uncertainty. Linda shook her head, her conviction unwavering. "You are more than qualified. Your perspective and experience bring a depth to this work that I can't provide alone. I want to create a space where your voice is not just welcomed, but valued." After a moment's contemplation, Evelyn's expression shifted from doubt to determination. "All right, I'll take a look," she replied, a spark of enthusiasm lighting her eyes. "But I warn you, we might uncover more than we bargained for." Linda smiled, feeling a rush of excitement at the prospect of their collaboration. "I wouldn't have it any other way. Together, we can challenge the norms and push the boundaries of what we know." As they began to discuss the parameters of the project, the room filled with a new energy, a sense of purpose that extended beyond mere academia. They were not just two individuals from different worlds coming together. They were forging a partnership that could reshape their understanding of knowledge and its applications. In the days that followed, Evelyn and Linda worked side by side, developing the mathematical model and exploring the complexities of the carbon cycle. Their collaboration was marked by a shared sense of curiosity and respect, each learning from the other's unique experiences and insights. Evelyn brought a practical understanding of real-world applications, while Linda offered her academic expertise to refine their approach. Word of their partnership spread throughout the university, sparking conversations about inclusion and representation in academia. Students and faculty alike began to reflect on their assumptions, questioning the very foundations of their beliefs regarding talent, privilege, and success. As their project progressed, Evelyn found herself stepping further into the academic world she had once thought was closed to her. She attended meetings, shared her ideas, and participated in discussions that fueled her passion for mathematics. Linda, in turn, became an advocate for greater inclusivity within the institution, using her platform to highlight the importance of diverse perspectives in research and education. Their work culminated in a presentation that showcased not only their findings, but also the journey that had brought them together. The lecture hall, once a place of hierarchy, transformed into a space of collaboration and mutual respect. As they stood before the audience, Linda felt a surge of pride in Evelyn's accomplishments and the impact they were making together. "Today, we challenge the narrative," Linda began, her voice resonating through the hall. "We celebrate the brilliance that exists in every individual, regardless of their background. Our work is a testament to the idea that true genius transcends privilege, and it is our collective responsibility to create a world where all voices are heard." The audience erupted in applause, a powerful acknowledgement of the journey they had all embarked upon together. Evelyn, standing beside Linda, felt a sense of fulfillment wash over her. She had not only reclaimed her passion for mathematics, but had also carved a space for herself within the academic community. As they left the lecture hall, Evelyn and Linda exchanged a knowing glance, a shared understanding of the significance of their collaboration and the possibilities that lay ahead. They were no longer defined by their past, but were united by a vision for a more inclusive future where talent could thrive without the constraints of societal expectations. Together, they had embarked on an extraordinary journey, one that would continue to unfold as they explored the depths of knowledge, challenged the status quo, and inspired others to recognize the potential within themselves. Their partnership was just the beginning, a powerful reminder that when we open our minds and hearts to one another, we can create change that resonates far beyond the walls of any lecture hall.